Om Vedanta Siddhanta Niruktiresha Brahmaiva Jivaham Sakalam Jagadcha Akanda Rupa Stiti Reva Moksho Brahma Advitiye Shrutayaha Pramanam Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. It is the apt and final conclusion of the Vedanta that all is Brahman. Time, space, living beings and the world. Living in constant recognition of this fact is what is called enlightenment. Brahman is pure and perfect, and one without a second. And the revealed scriptures are the sure and certain proof of this fact. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Purusham Artam Gunanam Shunyanam Prati Prashavaha Koivaya Swarupa Pratistam Vachiti Shakti Iti. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. That one divine and primordial presence, which involves consciousness back to its source, stripping nature of name and form along the way, accomplishes both, and the soul attains its final emancipation. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishovahai. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. May Brahman, divine reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us, and may Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the teachings, or with the world. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. And now the devotees here in Hawaii have all gathered here at Kedarnath Ashram on the Big Island in order to complete this 2-class series called Streaming Particles of Living Intelligence, a very noble and high title, which just hearing the sound of, you could see that it begs unwrapping. And we did part of that unwrapping last week. And in order to remind you, because Smriti is one of the key words here, memory, the memory that stretches back for lifetimes, is what we're emphasizing, and how to bring everything that you learned before forward, which some you do naturally, and others levels of that are forgotten by people, obviously, or they would be living much better lives and much more content than they are today in this, what we call the Kali Yuga. So the art of bringing back this divine memory of things past, and maybe filtering out with a good filter like Vedanta something of the negative that comes along with it. Like a last class series I was talking about opening an old door and letting sunlight in, but you don't know that other things creep in too, because there's dust and rust and bugs and wasps and everything else that have built on the outside of the door. That's sort of like the doorway to your higher mind, or you could even say to your heart chakra, which has become covered with the covering power of Maya, and the consciousness has become forgetful. So we looked at that in terms of the word Vishmriti, which is this dire forgetfulness. And but we prefaced that with the main chart called Streaming Particles of Living Intelligence. So that was represented by these two charts, and so that you can remember, even a week ago, Smriti, this, or hopefully Daiva Smriti, you're recognizing the divine nature of these teachings and thinking about them all week. I can't stop thinking about Brahman. Is a good problem to have, but I can't stop thinking about all the things in the world. Is a very draining prospect for people, and they can't even get to sleep or dream properly or have deep sleep because they're living in one state of consciousness called restlessness. So we wanted to bring forth how illumined souls look at that, because there are many perspectives to look at it. You can look at it from the standpoint of Maya and its problems, like the 16 evolutes and so forth. Or you can look at it in terms of practice, sadhana, as the aspirant is trying to penetrate through and bring everything forward and make the mind equal, tulya, like equilibrium. We want to have that kind of equilibrium of mind all the time and not fall out anymore. Make all three states of consciousness a different kind of oneness, like the AUM, Om, the word, the oneness of the word. So those two are the usual ways in which people who are waking up or are conscious are looking at things, either from the standpoint of it's a problem or there's a solution. But beyond problems and solutions, then there's the truth. And if you know the truth will set you free. So that's called Advaita in Vedanta realm, Vedanta Loka, with Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Sharda Devi, and Swami Vivekananda as our guides. And we look at that in terms of intelligence then, higher intelligence. Not Alpameda, as Krishna calls it, people with tiny intelligence. He mentions that word. But Meda is a good word. That means that's a part of the streaming particle, actually, is Meda. I'll show you what a streaming particle consists of right off the top today, so that we'll know what's streaming. Because there's always some tinier increment inside of that small increment, inside of that tiny increment, and it just goes so small, which is why we like to say think small in Vedanta. Not meaning don't have big thoughts, but look to the source of things, because things lose mass, weight, volume, height, width, depth, breadth as you go inside. And we know that up to the point of the atomic particle and its smaller increments. And then we give up after that, because change is what is the foundation. You're looking at Maya when you're looking at physical things. You're looking at the mind's sankalpa process. It's projections, it's dreams, and even objects are a part of those. They have the seeds in your mind back in thought. That's why Vivekananda said you can't destroy you can destroy the clay cup but not the thought clay cup, because the thought clay cup has become out here the actual clay cup, and that can be destroyed. Of course, destroyed means temporarily, and many more, a whole cupboard full of them or a whole shop full of them can be produced again in nature. But the real point of it is to think small, is to think back to the origin of things, which is your thinking process. So people have learned in spiritual life to study their thoughts, but the accent has been of late, that is, since Eastern darshanas like Buddhism and Vedanta and yoga came to the West, and we became more aware of them in the 50s and 60s when I was young. And some of our forefathers of Vedanta back in Swami Vivekananda's time, from the 1890s on, have been thinking in terms of examining thoughts, and with the ideal being to try and get rid of them. But I think along the way we've forgotten that when you're studying the origin of a thing, it's good to account for every level of it, so that you're not left with say a tu-yoga kind of philosophy, which I think is a valid point to make. about Western practitioners today. Meditation and service. If you're a fairly well-rounded practitioner of Indian thought, Indian darshanas, because there's not a lot of goings-on in Christianity and Judaism, not at least in the conventional levels of them, that have to do with meditation, particularly on the self, rather than on prayer or something. So that, given that fact, generally, at least, then people are having to come up against this Neo-Vedanta of Swami Vivekananda that tells you thoughts are to be contemplated, not just to be dissolved in order to get to a formless meditation. Along the way, there are a lot of things that you're going to have to account for, and so with that as a kind of preface is why I would propose something like streaming particles of living intelligence. You have to know what's inside, not just the object connected to your thoughts, but then connect the thought to their seeds, to their origins. And you're getting smaller and smaller there. I think the word tiny, small, modicum, increment, any kind of word you can think of in English that makes you think smaller and smaller becomes useless after a while, until you realize that if you're brooking the formless reality, that all particles are going to disappear. And we are given some sort of a cautionary teaching on that, a precognitive level of what formless reality is about, but we have no idea what it's going to be like when we experience it. We're going to be taken off guard. And depending on the mood or mode of your mind, tamas, rajas, sattva, that is, if you're meditating and your overall mode of your mind is heavy, and you're meditating another day and it's restless, and you're meditating another day and it's balanced, all of those, the meditation should go on no matter what. You should be able to pierce through the calm the restlessness, pierce through the darkness, and try and reach a state of balance. So whatever the meditation is attended by, guna-wise, in that particular day and time, if the experience from your karmas and your mode of time that you're meditating in grants to you the ability to have a formless meditation all of a sudden, then you're going to experience it differently depending on what condition the mind's in. So if you have a feeling of formlessness come upon you in tamas, you're going to think death, and you're going to be fearful, and you're going to run away from it. You're going to open your eyes, you're going to back off. But if it comes during sattva and balance, it's going to seem very natural to you to have formlessness. And that's a kind of samadhi that's being gifted to you by the mother of all streaming particles. She's determining the right moment, the auspicious moment for things. Auspicious timing is a very important element in spiritual life. So to have an ideal, and to know that that ideal is your overseer and is dictating the right moments for everything, then you do your practice steadily on all levels, whether it be pujas or yagas or devotions or chanting or studying scriptures or meditating or serving humanity, serving God and humanity. Then you remain steady in all the practices, and you're waiting on this timing to come, because the whole thing is about seeing God face to face. And then knowing that that very God that you were looking for is your true nature, has always been your true nature, will never not it be anything other than your true nature, and that all of these other things were just coverings that were being placed over it at different levels. Whether it be by gunas, whether it be by time, whether it be by conditionings from parental upbringing, whether it be by karma from past lifetimes, you could go on naming and probably use all the fingers of your two hands the reasons why formlessness disappears to most of humanity, and particularly in this age. And that would probably make you conclude at that point, there's got to be a penultimate ideal here, or a tattva, a principle that's so high, yet it doesn't reach into the realm of formlessness yet, so that you can comprehend it, so that you can follow it. So you would, just like you would follow beams of light toward the stars, and some interesting facts about time would come to you through astronomy and so forth. In the same way, if you're following the streams of intelligent particles which are in your mind back to where they stream from, then one has to do with evolution, going out. The other has to do with involution, going within. And the deeper you go within, then what we're used to going to is jumping straight to the Ishvara form, Trinity, by using the bijams or the mantrams. That's what we've been given in this day and age, and in the Western countries, to pay it all forward as quickly as we can. I'm just kind of summating all this for you. It's like already a 60, 70-year history now that we have since 1950, when I was born, and when we began to see great beings, teachings that they left behind, and began to take them seriously. That is, it took us for a while to penetrate through conventions that were growing. Money, madness, depressions, everything that happened to us from 1890 to 1950, and some semblance of the truth of the teachings of the Buddha, and some great presence like a man like Swami Vivekananda coming to the Parliament of Religions in 1893 and penetrating through this darkness and speaking about the first compound of consciousness. That's what actually set me off on this some months ago. So it's going to be a new series of charts that are going towards a direction that our intellects should be able to follow. As I found it in Lord Vashishta's yoga yesterday, it says, make sure you secure the sailboat of your pure intellect and then sail across the ocean of Brahman free, he said. So the intellect should become your personal vehicle. That's what's being said here. Is that streaming particles back to the source is the finest and most certain way of grabbing a hold of the Divine Mother's hem of her garment. You see, I'm going to say coattails, but she's not a male. So grab a hold of the hem of her garment and follow these streaming particles. It would be similar to Kundalini Yoga's system, which is shared by both Vedanta and Tantra. These 7 chakras, or 7 worlds, that we've studied, a lot of us who are interested in Indian darshanas, both Astika and Nastika. So if we grab a hold and we follow inward, we're taking this inward path, then we find out that there are collections of powerful thoughts that great beings had that are acting like suns in an otherworldly universe, not a physical universe. There's as many suns there as there are here. But these are suns made of great thoughts, amalgam of great thoughts. And so we proceeded from these. We were born out of these. These are our homes, our true homes. They're our refuge. That's why they call Lord Shiva, the home of peace. See, he's your true refuge. So, for living beings then who want to comprehend this in a rather swift way of doing it, then you could look at this as streaming particles of living intelligence. And we have it on good record then with Swamiji's quote that intelligence is the first compound off of consciousness. Now we know that consciousness, Chaitanya, Brahman, Atman, is the thing in Indian philosophy. In fact, it just is. Existence is. Sarvosmi. Everything is. This is sort of the shortest way you could put it inside of a bijam. Remember, before you do anything, Sarvosmi, everything is. Or you could put it, nothing is not. So knowing that everything is and that it can't be destroyed because it was never created, and it's the foundation of everything that's unalterable and immutable, and it's beyond vibration, then what's its first compound? That would be the first thing that vibrates, scripture says, buddhahe. So it's the buddhi. When it turns off, the intelligence, everything turns off. It's deep sleep for you, if you're in a body. And it's formlessness if you're not. Even Divine Mother says, when everything ends at the end of a cycle, and everything is dissolved by Lord Shiva, then I myself take refuge in Brahman. I meld with Brahman. This is in her own scripture, Srimad Devi Bhagavatam. And then I wait for the next creation, and I come forth as such things as intelligence, spontaneous knowledge, causal memory, mental acuity, intuitive intellect. All these things are a part of every particle of one of these rays. So I would say the rays themselves are an amalgam of these that are both penetrating and creating at the same time. We'll go to this in a minute. You can see the power of projection and the force of intelligence are the cell wall, I'm calling it, see, of these. Maybe hand me that book and I can show it, because last week I showed you the book on Gyanamatra, and so I should probably show it again here, so that Gyanamatra. So, of course, this was years ago, and through constant thinking of a subject like this, then my mind says, time to put it in another way. So when you hear somebody like Vivekananda say, intelligence is the first compound off of consciousness, not willpower, he says, as some of the darshanas would aver, but intelligence is the first thing to make an appearance, then you're going to want to trace yourself back to this penultimate station. Like formlessness, who has that under their control? Maybe even when Samadhi comes to great souls, he said, I don't know how I got it. I found out it wasn't through my practice, although the practice was necessary to pure my mind, so my pure mind could know that it's pure Atman. But it came by some grace, they all say. So grace is an unfigured element in the quotient. That, given the fact that we have that on record by many great luminaries, then we open ourselves up to grace, and we find out that it takes this form called Chit Shakti, which is why I chanted the last sutra of the Yoga Sutras before I started this class. Purusham Artam Shunyanam Gunanam Prati Prashavaha, and then Koivalya, this freedom from all form, Swarupa, essence, Pratishta, steady. I'm steady and being steady in that station of formlessness, Koivalya. Then I come to see Vachati Shakti Iti. I see the Divine Mother as the foundation of my thoughts. She's the intelligence in everything. So I sang that last week with that Mono Boli Bhajakali, and how that's explained that from our standpoint, since we're so attached to words and letters and libraries and books and so forth in Western education, that maybe that is a way that some more contemporary thinker in India could tell the rest of the world without having to go too esoteric on them. Well, it's just she's in every letter, and she's the meaning in everything. She's the force in everything, and that's the origin of everything. And so each of those is a step back to finer and finer level of your vibrating intelligence. And as it vibrates less and less by intensity, it gets harder and harder to cognize, to see, until she's invisible behind everything. It's very hard to bring her out of hiding. She's the most retiring of all the tattvas and principles. And without her, the chants in the Upanishads and Tantras say that all these tattvas out here, hearing, tasting, touching, hearing, smelling, earth, air, fire, water, ether, all these things would be like clouds with no rain if she wasn't the primal tattva behind them all, within them all, supporting them all. And the power of intelligence that's projecting them all and turning them into objects. So that's what we're trying to say here. This is another interpretation or another side of this chart, which I would never get tired of talking about, basically, is that you see it came from bijams, were there, seed words, with their letters, uttered by beings who knew how to use them, because anyone can say the word Om, but only when a great soul like Vivekananda or Sri Ramakrishna says the word Om will they get the effect of it and go into samadhi right there, because they know that that's the source of everything. So it takes their individualized consciousness and just immediately withdraws it up these streaming particles back to the source. They go both ways, see, in and out. And that's how projecting and withdrawal happens. Projection, withdrawal, projection, and that's how in-breath and out-breath happens. That's how waking and sleeping happen, based all on these particles that you're riding. They're your vahana. Vahana in Sanskrit means your vehicle. That's how you're getting around. Remember, some years ago we gave that teaching on Brahmapada, the 4 feet of Brahman. So Brahman gets around the universe. How does it do that? Because you see, it's motionless, it's inactive, it's static. So so when it wants to get around the universe, how does it do that? AUM and Turiya, through the 4 states of consciousness. Those are its feet. So you wake, dream, go into deep sleep, and go beyond all 3. That's Brahman walking about you. That's you walking with Brahman as your vehicle. And yes, it doesn't move, it means it's everywhere, but it becomes conscious of itself, moving, walking, dreaming, eating, sleeping, and everything, through you. So thou art that. So you begin to make deeper connections, rishis, yogis, souls that have that particular leaning towards the mystic, towards the word, towards sound, towards vibration. And this would be one of the precious teachings coming out of Brahmakala, the formless form, you might say. All of these streams. The new chart now has Shakti here and Sakshi here. See, so I've added a few things to these 2 little beams, you see. So all these beams coming out, which evince the fact that all of a sudden something started vibrating. Brahman vibrationless, completely content in non-vibration, all of a sudden something vibrates. That's the intellect. That's the great intellect, all of a sudden decides to avail itself of the word. And right at that point, on a very deep and primal level, which is an eternal moment, that's even prior to another threesome, past, present, and future, prior to time kicking in, that vibration, that primal vibration started. Vachati Shakti. So in the Bible, it's he breathed upon the waters. In the Rig Veda, it's she breathed upon the waters. However you want to put it, some vibration, primal vibration happened, availed itself of what was potential, and everything started vibrating from a very, very causal place to a very subtle place, finally out to a gross place. M, U, and A. See, Mua. And then you reverse it, and it's Om. And it returns to its source. She takes transmigrating consciousness and returns it to its source, but as she does so, she has to take name and form away from it. Just like she gave it to that particular evolving bit of consciousness when it took on form. This is seen as a very natural thing to be happening, like a breath. Do you think much about your breath? Well, you probably should, as they tell you that it would be good to connect it to some deeper meaning, and to watch it, to observe it, is only a part of that. Which again is back to the two yoga kind of practice we have. And that can become a pieces of white bread sandwich with nothing in the middle. You want to put devotion and wisdom in there. And so when you're talking about Divine Mother, you've got this deep devotion of all the Shaktas, all those who have seen her and who have known her. See, Mantranam Jivabhuta Tulya Smrita Shakti Rupaya. Remember the form of Shakti, Rupa. Smriti, Tulya Smriti, even in their memory. You see, they brought back their memory of her. And so they knew her as the imperishable Shakti. The great souls know her as the imperishable Shakti. And they know that she's the secret of all the bijams. This is actually said in the Tantras. It's written in the Tantras. So this isn't something we're making up, you see, or some fanciful thing that, it's another way of opening up our memory to something that always existed. That's what it is. Because those gates have closed on us. And in a physical form, in a physical world, they became great gates that closed. And that's why I said, if you open again, be careful what you let in, you see, as you open these chakras. And you go inward. You have to be on guard and be aware, be conscious, and have a guide, have an ideal. And hopefully any kind of precognitive wisdom you can have about systems like this called darshanas. Darshana means to clearly see. So great souls who come to this world, as we said in this chant, unillumined minds project their crystallized mental complexes into numerous forms over cycles of time. So illumined souls, you see, they know all the processes already. If they come back and forth through the curtain of nescience, it strips all their past memories from them. Speaking of unillumined souls. Illumined souls can go back and forth through the curtain of nescience, or what Sri Aurobindo called the amber stairs of birth and death, to quote him. They can go up and down those stairs or back and forth over lifetimes and not get stripped of their memory. They'll bring these systems with them. And that's why Shankara could tell you about them when he was 8. How about that for a teacher? You got to go to Shankara's parents' house, you see, somewhere at 700. You had a birth during his lifetime. So you walked in there and sat down with him. It wasn't like, oh, what a nice little stuffed animal you're playing with, you see. He'll start telling you about your birth in a previous lifetime and how to get free. All just bringing it back, and it's a little boy sitting there. So in lighter ages, that is, ages that weren't so darksome, then this knowledge was more available to people. Treta Yuga, even Dwapara Yuga, you had at least half of your, or a third of your remembrance, spiritually speaking, available to you. But in this day and age, Kali Yuga, they say it's all forgotten. All bets are off. So if you have a soul like Sri Ramakrishna, a great Paramahamsa, or we call him the Great Swan, or we call Vivekananda the Great Swami. So if you have the Great Swan and the Great Swami, and then you have the Holy Mother behind them, the Humpsi, sometimes the Hamsa and the Humpsi, then you know that there was an extremely powerful stream of intelligent particles penetrated this earth. There's songs about it I can sing you. Songs about it. written already in a short time since they were on Earth. So a kind of review of this, so you can see what we're talking about. We're going to look next at Bijams, using this chart as, of course, the first part. But before, just to remind you that we did look at the dire effects of forgetfulness, Vishmriti. So you have Smriti, memory, you have Vishmriti, dire forgetfulness of that, and then you have Daiva Smriti. You could put it into another Triputi based on that powerful Sanskrit word. So Smriti Rupena Ya Krishnami Tat Vyapyastata Jagat. We sang that last week. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Vishnu Mayati Shabgita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Smriti Rupena Samstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Namo Namaha. Om. So as divine memory then, Smriti Rupena Ya Krishnami Tat Vyapya Statajagad. Statajagad, is equal in, again, steady in that memory, Smriti. So you keep that, and that's a chant that can go on in the puja for hours. Yep. Divine Mother of the Universe, you exist as Daya Rupena Samstita, Namastasyai, Namastasyai. You salute every one of those 3 times. Daya Rupena Samstita, Jnana Rupena Samstita, Smriti Rupena Samstita, Bhakti Rupena Samstita. You can pick any Sanskrit word you want that's of a powerful quality and put it in that chant and just chant that all day. And I've been to, in India, and pujas that have done that, coming out of great scriptures like the Chandi or Durga Saptasati, talking about Sri Durga. So to think about this then in that way brings it all back from last week. That's a part of your memories role, isn't it? Is to keep these teachings on the tip of the tongue of your mind. For me, they're on the tip of both tongues, mind and tongue. But you at least have to keep it on that manana, that tongue of manana, that you roll this over in your mind every day. You can do it at work. Pretty soon you develop that nadi or that habit, and you're working like an automaton, and you're doing perfectly well in your job, but your mind's not there. And is that dangerous? Don't operate heavy equipment like that kind of thing? No, because she is there as the power of the word, as your guide. She's doing everything, as Sri Ramakrishna used to say. I say a lot of things, but she sits there in my throat and pours out the knowledge. See? If you see one of Sri Ramakrishna's meditation pictures, his face go up, you can see 2 eyes in there. Have you ever seen that? It's probably 2 of his teeth back there, and his smile. But it just looks like Mother Kali or Mother Saraswati's back there looking out of his mouth, 2 little eyes peering out. So she is back there. Whether she's seen or not, it's not the point. It's that she's there as wisdom at the palate, at the root of the tongue, at the middle of the tongue, and at the tip of the tongue. At the root of the fingers, at the middle of the fingers, and at the tip of the fingers. Does this sound familiar? So she's there throughout all levels. So the yogis meditate on the base of the tongue. This is in the Yoga Sutras, by the way. It's the only mention Patanjali makes much about that kind of power of the body. It's basically root of the tongue, then they meditate on the middle of the tongue, then they meditate on the tip of the tongue. Why is this? So they're purifying it, they're making it ready for her to sit on it. It's her asana. And then she's going to sit there and start giving divine discourse. Our founder, Lex Hixon, was talking about that a lot. Oh, Uma, she sits, gives divine discourse all day to people who come. Quick, O Queen Mother, run to your daughter, because she's coming back to the world. So the Queen Mother is Uma's mother, you see. So she hears her daughter's coming back to the worldly realm, taking a form, and she goes running to see her. Oh, where have you been, my daughter? Come home. And then we'll hear nothing but beautiful melodious sounds of the scriptures being chanted all day, and discourse with commentary, reveal all the secrets of words. She is the secret in all the mantras. She's in every letter. And this is proven by her presence. And it's proven by the transforming power of what she says to you. And the profound effects that it has on you. This is falling on his head. This is like Ganges. These are like different rivers, you see. Narmadi, Sindhu, Kaveri, Jalishmin, Sanidim, Kuru, Ganga, Saraswati. Those are all profound, powerful rivers in India. Some of them have disappeared. But what they really are have come from these inner rivers called nadis, like the Sushumna and the Ida and the Pingala, you see. These are divine rivers in which are flowing up and down. So if that kind of power gets loose in the Kali Yuga upon the physical world, it'll destroy it. So Shiva goes there and stands under it, and it hits his head. See, have you ever seen pictures of Shiva? His matted locks are wet with the white foam of the Ganges. That's how it's put in the songs. So he receives the brunt of her power so that it won't destroy the world, destroy the earth. Earth couldn't bear it because, as Sri Ramakrishna said, one ray of wisdom from the Divine Mother of the universe stuns 1,000 scholars. One ray of wisdom from the Divine Mother of the universe stuns 1,000 scholars. They won't know what to do with it. Their egos will be stripped away. They'll know that nothing is up to them. It's all up to her. So let's look at bijams, because that's enough of an introduction for our smriti, whether it be a problem or a solution, but hopefully we're going to be looking at it as the truth. This is our Advaitic way of expressing it. So we don't want to go through all this again, but look back on it. You can see I have a nice new clear image of the inner space and what stands as a curtain of nescience between basically your heart chakra and the earth plane, if you want to put it in Kundalini speak. There are a lot of things that stood in the way. They were Vyasti and Samasti, weren't they? Some of them were interpersonal, and some of them were cosmic. So there are things you can do something about and things you can't, that you just have to pierce through. Either way, your intelligence is fit if you hone it for doing that. You can solve it or you can penetrate it. If it can't be solved for billions of other souls, 7 of them here on earth, and many more in the heaven realms, then you pierce through it. You go beyond it. Far beyond both name and form is Atma, never free. Know thou art that. And so you have to arm yourself with that kind of thinking and know it where it comes from. See, those great thoughts have come from a place. And when you went to class with your guru, you sat under a streaming particle for 3 hours. Then the other 21 hours of the day, what did you do? Things you had to make a living? Great. But can you do both? Can you hold 2 ideals at once? Can you keep her and living particles and the words that came as divine discourse through your guru from her in mind all week and practice the solution of Smriti Rupena? Or get rid of the problem of Vismriti? And this should be a prerequisite ideal in you. If formlessness is not available to us, Vivekananda said that about the Americans. He said, it might be that none of you will get enlightenment, when he looked at us, what we were laboring under. He said, but you know, you all can get a collective enlightenment if you pull together. But will we do it? No! If you can even get 5 million of 7 billion together, then you have a chance for some awakening going on. So I have my new bijam. It's called EEV. EEV. It's a new bijam I've made up here in Manidvipa, Hawaii. EEV is what? It's a beautiful, small, red Hawaiian bird with a long beak. It's called the EEV. I-I-W-I, is it? The V, the W gets pronounced V in Hawaiian. So it's this beautiful bird. I have a chart now with it as a centerpiece. You'll see it next week at the seminar. So it has this long beak. So the beautiful, rare EEV bird with long, curved beak sucks nectar out of ohia flowers like a yogi with a sophisticated mind extracts essence from all created things. So, EEV, it's a new bijam, and here's my new mudra for it. If you come to me and I do this, you say, yes, you're making a little progress, but there's good, and then there's better. And there's better, and then there's best, you see. So, if you go to Mother Kali and look at her, she's got sometimes full moon, half moon, crescent moon, no moon. See, she has at least got a crescent moon on this bow, but Kali goes all black on you. No moon, new moon. So new moon at midnight. You heard that musical piece? Written by someone, mentioning no names. That's Kali Puja, new moon at midnight. So that's what you see when you go to her. But if you come to me, her child, I'll either do that to you, that, or that. See? Or maybe this. So are you making a little progress at least? EEV? Are you learning how to stick the long beak of your streaming particles of intelligence, which you have available to you now, into the ohia flower of Divine Mother consciousness and extract essence from everything in your life? Or are you just wasting time treading water, going nowhere faster, we used to say? I play the guitar pretty good. Well, my friend plays faster, but he plays fast of all. Well, yeah, it's just because he's going nowhere faster. We used to say when we played guitars as we were a youth, you see. So you can go nowhere faster. That might be a genius or an intellect. Shakespeare called that much to do about nothing. Much ado about nothing. It's a play. Much ado about nothing. And so that's what it is if you live a life in the world without her as your guide. May she, the primal guide, my refuge be. Who said that? One of the greatest minds that visited Earth in hundreds of years, Swami Vivekananda. May she, the primal guide, my refuge be. So in that way we have an ideal and we have his advice and we have a way of proceeding. And we know what's in the way. We know how to get rid of it, either personally with our sadhana or transcend it with the use of her, consciousness of her. And then we reclaim and we retain our divine memory. Now what's in that? Because people who are looking who maybe aren't aware of what's in the increment of an increment, because these streaming particles, except when you see a shooting star at night, are not available to us. And we know something causing the light of a shooting star. there's an object there. There's something that's actually happening up there that causes that appearance or that phenomena to take shape. It's the same inside. Something's happening, and there are increments inside of it. So this, of course, gone through more deeply in this book, Jnanamatra, if you want to look at it and avail yourself of your own streaming particles. And look at a whole new different particle theory if you want to put convention next to Mother Wisdom as we study. So this has not been presented for several years, but now it's coming forth again in terms of how there's so many billions of these inside of a stream of particles. These particles are wisdom particles, jnana matras. Matra is an ancient Sanskrit word, so they knew about everything consisting of particles. They didn't come at it by studying physical things first with an electron microscope. They came at it by meditating first with their awareness. That was their electron microscope. So how did they know there were such things as particles that made this up? They skirted the problem of getting attached to the object by looking at particles in physical things, by seeing the origin to physical things being in their thoughts, and those thoughts in Atma Brahma. And then by practicing meditation, Te Dhyan Yoga Nugata Passion, they saw the Devatma Shakti existing in everything. So they began to see things that were not there. They saw things that were not there to the five senses, which is how they came up with Tanmatras, to explain how you got from something subtle to something physical. And then, well, the subtle's not going to do it, because the mind is constantly vibrating with all sorts of things, some of them not concentrated like this. I mean, that's the problem with restless mind, is people aren't actually claiming their own power to think straight. That's a divine inheritance that you should have been given by your dharmic ancestors, like India was. Why they ended up with this wisdom then is no real secret. That they've lost it in the Kali Yuga is a surprise, but so much for the power of Avidya Shakti. In this day and age, Avidya Shakti is more powerful than Vidya Shakti. Ignorance is more powerful than knowledge, Sri Ramakrishna said. So when you talk about Vidya Shakti, you're talking about the power of science to do away with illusion, because it can't. It's supporting illusion. It's based in pleasure and money and gain and personality and fame and name. That's what it wants. That's its end. That's the cult of materialism. Then there's the cult of religion, you see, or let's call it irreligion. But then there's true religion, which is dharma and truth. So in that way, then, you should avail yourself of your own ability to pull these particles together. It's called concentration, if you want a simple word. It's the fifth limb of yoga, sixth limb of yoga, sorry. The fifth limb of yoga, pratyahara, is what you're doing when you're trying to pull these things together. Scattered mind, gathering mind, gathered mind, focused mind, is how Vivekananda talked about it. He was taking Patanjali's 5 states of mind and, in a newer age, slimming them down to 4. Scattered mind, gathering of the mind, gathered mind, now focused mind. See, it would be sort of like if you've seen people working with welders working. See, they'll strike the flint, the welder will have this gross flame on it, and then they'll attenuate it, by turning it, you see, and it's just this very hot but very gross flame. Pretty soon it's finer, then it turns like a blue ray almost, and that's what they cut with. Cuts right through metal in seconds. That's what you need to do with your mind, from scattered gathering, gathered, focused, you see. Where are you right now in it? How adept are you? What level are you? Are you scattered? I don't think anyone in this room is scattered. And I hope nobody looking on is scattered. Are you gathering? Are you gathered? And have you focused? Focus there is a very powerful word. And so this is so focused that you can extract essence from everything. And beyond that, you retain it. So that's the next step, to be able to retain it and never lose it. So focus is the fourth state of mind, ekagra it's called. And then niruddha, no mind left anymore, means it's already gone back to its original state of knowing that it is that thou art. You found your way philosophically back from mantras to bijams to mahavakyas is basically what you've done. So looking at bijams then, and this is what's inside of a great particle. As best as I could put it on an 8 by 11 and expand it for you to a 24 by 36. And I'm going to go through it quickly because we've taken this apart. The book's now out on it for years. If this appeals to you, then through this streaming particles of living intelligence, which we'll talk a little more about, you'll be able to avail yourself of these. So basically there's nothing better to put in the middle of a particle than just the power of the word. That's really kind of what you're talking about. So there's the Om sign. The first thing we'd say is that it really is waking, dreaming, deep sleep. And then Shvara. Shvara is that half moon with a dot. I call it a one-eyed smile because you've reached single-eyed concentration there. And so you can see how those are each designated. Waking is Jagrat, Swapna is the dreaming state, Sushupti is deep sleep state, and Turyatita up there, actually Turya, I also added Turyatita as a fifth state. So basically this is the gift of Advaita Vedanta, specifically accented by Gaudapada, Govindapada, and Shankara, when they're the most recent advocates of it, or teachers of it, revealers of it. Because these systems go away, get replaced by other systems which are good, but not necessarily better. And then another time passes, more people come, and then this system comes out from Mother again. She gives it to certain great minds who get born, bring it back again. In the Gita, this is called the long efflux of time by Sri Krishna. It's one of the disadvantages of being on the cycle of time. The Kala Chakra, Buddha called it. Cycles of time. So it suggests then that you can be out of time, but you still exist. So most people think, if I'm in time, that's my place, that's my refuge. I'm born in time, I die in time. That's all perfectly right. But you're forgetting the witness up here, you see. Sakshi, a position that you should probably hold if you're in a body. The best way to be, if you can't have formlessness yet, which you probably can't because you have to live the prarabdha karma of this body out. Maybe you'll have a few tastes of it. But then the best position to hold would be Sakshi Bhutam, the witness of all phenomena. And we usually give that teaching to tell us, to remind us that we're doing that because there's suffering in all created things. But that's not where it's coming from in Advaita. Sakshi Bhutam, witness of all phenomena, is full of bliss. That's why they do it. Suffering is nothing to them. It's not real. It's not actual. They can't believe in something that's unreal, so they're not going to live lifetimes of suffering. They'll come and suffer to help you out of suffering. But Sakshi Bhutam suggests something that is untouchable. The first person to use that word, in a good way, because there are unfortunate ways of using that, like the untouchables of India and Gandhi's life and all that. But the untouchable that they mean in Advaita Vedanta was gifted to us by Gaudapada. So this is the untouchable station that is beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. And if you come to the seminar, attend it this weekend, online seminar, we'll have a lot of things to say about the beauty of witness consciousness, the station of witness consciousness. You can brood, you can dream, you can think, or you can witness. Brooding is detrimental. Dreaming is a waste of time. If you're living dream lifetimes, you're not going anywhere. You're just going nowhere faster. You're treading water to stay afloat until you get tired and drowned. Dreaming's a waste of time. Here I'll give you a quote. That the Atman dreams is nonsense. There's no dreaming in Brahman. So, I mean, this is spoken by Vivekananda, who is a fully awakened soul, and his life isn't a dream. His life is a gift to you. He's a real entity amongst unreal entities. Trying to convince him that they're also real entities. So, dreaming's a waste of time. Thinking, that's a mixed bag. Thinking is, put it this way, thinking can be productive, but unless it actually produces productivity, it's a waste of time. It weighs, it deliberates, but it doesn't decide. And this is what the cult of materialism is into, science and all that. It weighs, it deliberates, it makes the wrong conclusion, but it doesn't decide. It doesn't get off the fence. That only happens when you get what's called witness consciousness. At the level of witness consciousness, it's like the Buddha was at and so forth, there you can extract essence from everything. You can even get essence from unreal things, like the Eevee bird is getting from the lehua blossom. See, with its long curved beak. Sits upside down on it, has fun extracting honey and nectar from that flower. Making a comeback in Hawaii too, I think. It was endangered for a while, but we're seeing more often. See, I'm not getting very far in explaining a wisdom particle, I know, but all of these thoughts are within it. I think basically I did do enough of waking, dreaming, and deep sleep to show how Advaita speak. That's really kind of the core of intelligence. If you know that waking, dreaming, and deep sleep belong to you, then you can make some real progress in life. And it's just like you've put everything else behind you all of a sudden with some sort of magic touch you have. And you transformed yourself on the spot. You'll never be the same again. And hopefully you'll remember that you'll never be the same again. That Vismriti will have no power over you anymore. You'll be like he was, like they were. That's kind of the inner core of intelligence, Advaitically speaking, for us in India. Now you see there, I want to go to the cell wall. See that black line border that circles the Jnanamatra? It's protective. Smriti means retentive memory. Vismriti means forgetfulness. Daiva Smriti means divine memory. So again, that Triputi is very interesting to keep in mind. So this Jnanamatra is impervious. It's impenetrable to the unfortunate occurrence of forgetfulness. Don't forget to remember your Divine Mother's name. If you connect all of this to her name, mantra style, bijam style, then when you think of that, you'll think of her. And when you think of her, you're free. When you forget her, you're bound. How freedom and bondage can happen within 5 seconds to you. And how it can retain, how you can retain it forever if you just O lover of God, O lover of Divine Mother, how we used to put it. You are the goddess, right? You are the goddess. Huh? Oh, meditator. You are the goddess. Or another way it's put in a certain song is that O meditator, become the goddess. She is your essence. So that's a beautiful English mantra to keep on hand. So that's important. Retentive memory is a protective cell wall. The Jnana mantra then has no death. It's not like you can diffuse light. You can't diffuse the light of wisdom. It's impregnable. So if you own it like that, you possess it, then you're impregnable. You're impervious to everything. That's a really good definition for witness consciousness. Then look bottom left, the force of intelligence. There's Chit Shakti, or what yoga calls Chitti Shakti, that I chanted about just some minutes ago. Bottom right, projecting power. So if you were to gather up your wisdom particles and send it towards something, then you've got a lot of power. And there's basically, people are aware of that, but what they're feeling is the presence of tanmatras without knowing them. So if I look at someone, they look at me, you see. So they felt me. They felt my tanmatras, right? So it happens to even ordinary people at parties and so forth. So power of attraction. So they're using it all for very, superficial means, to hook up, or whatever they're saying nowadays, you see. So basically they felt something. So if they looked into the power of attraction, and they were, rasam, that there would be this deep enjoyment in it, that some power that caused them to turn their head. So that's all physical mechanisms and so forth. But it's based on feeling particles coming from the eyes. So their eyes, they're the power to see. The eyes have the power to see in them. That's hooking up more with tanmatras, and it's more subtle body stuff. The physical body is following the dictates of the subtle body's desires. So if you were to refine that many times over, then you would find the attraction of mother to the child. You'd find the attraction of disciple to guru. You'd find the attraction of devotee to God, all in increments, intensified many times over, as these particles came into control under the auspice of this individual, who's now an awakened soul, is now a seer. And with that, can project in a whole different way than other people. It's the difference between like Mayik Sankalpa and Lila Sankalpa and Atmik Sankalpa. There's another Triputi, you see. So Maya Sankalpa, I'm projecting to get things, and so forth and so on. Selfish and all. Lila Sankalpa, I'm here to express myself in the Lord. And Atmik Sankalpa, see, I'm here to transform people. My gaze is a transmission, see. And darkness gets burnt away in it. You can't hide from it, see. Like Bushundi the crow couldn't hide from Ram, in the story in the Ramayana. So went everywhere to try and hide from Ram, but Ram finally found him. So that's the penetrating gaze of an illumined soul will burn through things. What is it doing when it burns through things? What happens? You remember. So people walking down the streets of Chicago, you see, this is a story in our tradition, sees a poster, Swami Vivekananda, the Hindu monk, spelled Hindoo. You see, the media didn't quite get it right, but it was okay. And immediately saw the face on that poster, 1890s, and went to see the talk. You know, because remembered that foreign monk there who was a Hindu and a Swami, whatever that was, cut straight through everything to the core of his memory and went to the talk, became a follower. So this is a beautiful thing. The risk to it is forgetfulness again, because it comes dancing back. See? Well, I went and I saw he was just human. He said a lot of great things, but you know, I didn't stay around long enough to allow them to have their effect on me, because I'm an arrogant Westerner. See? And I have all my defenses up. And I still believe in old conditionings from my upbringing. And I still believe that my country's superior, and I still believe that I should dominate over other countries. And on with a list of things, you see. I still believe that science is the only way to go now. It's like, you know, the new religion. But it's the cult of materialism, is what it is. It's never going to get you anywhere but objects. And we know what objects happen, what happens to objects. They get destroyed. You get bored with them. They get stolen. And a whole host of other things happen to objects. So the projecting power of this Jnana Mantra, when they're gathered together, is what causes transformation. It also affords divine sport. The Tantrists, the Advaitas, have to argue a little bit over that, you see. But I don't think there's an argument there, really. Upper right is Vyapakatma. It's got a pervading quality. You could say, philosophically, since you know, it's already there, then I can make contact with it. But if it wasn't there ever, then it would be very difficult to find it. I might have to create it anew. And that was a mistake I made with my culture, is that I thought I was creating new things. And I didn't listen to the old seers who said, there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing new under the sun, that's a Christian saying. Ecclesiastes, I think, wow, that's like a mantra there. You know, that's a koan, a Christian koan. You have to think about that one, because what will it do? Waken up your divine memory. This is all what this is about. You can answer any question I posed to you today by saying, wake up your divine memory. It's got a pat answer. Everything I'm saying, this is what it's all about. You are that, is an Advaitic statement. But people make that very hard to realize. And possibly it is, till you're qualified for it. But this isn't hard. You see. Because you're doing it every day, you're uncovering things that are already in you. I mean, it's being proved to you in your very life that this is the way things proceed, if you're an awakened soul. That is, if you have awakened. If you've transcended restless mind, or scattered mind, and you begin to gather mind, you might as well already be at the goal. You should be thinking this way. Just around the next corner, and I get to see the vision of the divine being. Just the next meditation, I'll be transported into divine reality, steeped in ecstasy. And after that, I'll come back with the memory of it, and I'll be at peace, peace, peace. And game is over. See, now. The game was afoot, now it's over. Those are those four are what the cell wall consists of. As far as I could put it in English language and words, when I thought about it, did manana on the scriptures, envisioned it, what is intelligence? How does it work? Where does it come from? What's the best use for it? You just need to plumb the depths of these things and come to some conclusions. I think there's a particle out in there, just like there's particles in objects at many levels. So the inner particle that gave rise to the outer, Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudacite, everything out there came from within, and it's all infinite, so I don't have that problem anymore. From the infinite, the finite came, because even the finite is infinite. Might as well put that one to rest. Any doubt around voidism or non-dualism or nihilism. And then proceed from there. If I proceed from there, then I'll see that causal memory is a very leaf of the lotus. You see, it's one of these petals of the lotus of Jnana Matra. And this is a meditation for you. Yeah, you can meditate on the ocean, the sun. Try meditating on this from now on. Just look at it, memorize it, or don't keep your eyes open and let your mind go. Because you're looking at yourself. You're looking at particles of your true self, as far as particles apply. And pretty soon the particles will dissolve when you consider them. So we've done our job now. It's like looking like a bush full of butterflies. They fly away. So once they've done their business, you see, they're gone. See, and you're left in formlessness. Because you remembered who you are. So causal memory, smriti hetu, it's called. It's one of the words I became very interested in Sanskrit. Like I say, you're talking about bijams here. Every Sanskrit word to me is kind of a bijam because of where it came from. What its basis is, what its intention was as a language. The language of the gods, Deva Bhashya they call it. It wasn't the language of the materialistic cult. It was a language of divinity. The gods had to explain to us how they felt in the subtle body and why their devotion was so deep that they became gods. And then explain it to the ancestors and the humans in some way. Pratibha is next, intuitive intelligence. Meda, mental acuity. Kriya Gyan, spontaneous knowing. It all has to do with knowledge, knowing, the knower. Lower right, Sakshi Chaitanya, witness intelligence. Or witness consciousness. Already said a lot about that. Gyanagni, fire of wisdom. Okay. So, if you're talking about bijams, fire of wisdom, then maybe you'd want to do what other seers have done. Sarva Shruti Shiroratna Samudbhasita Murtaye Vedantam Bhuja Suryaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Jnana Shakti Samarudas Tattvamala Vibhushitaha Bhukti Mukti Pradatacha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Deva Maheshwara Gurur Eva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Guru Sakshi Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. And more verses come forth from that. The famous Guru Stotram, which says in those particular verses, which is why I remembered it, O effulgent sun of self-luminous knowledge, the radiant light of Vedanta is the warmth of wisdom that you emanate. It's all put in terms of particles, isn't it? Wisdom rays. And brilliant rays of infinite spiritual teachings reveal the lustrous jewel of your compassionate understanding. Reverent salutations to the eternal teacher. Vedantam Bhuja Suryaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sarva Shruti Shiroratna. All the scriptures, Sarva Shrutis. So they all speak in terms of this divine memory, of rays of luminous wisdom emanating off of Divine Mother of the Universe. Goes on to say, I offer continual prostrations to the Blessed Guru, who has kindled a fire of self-knowledge within me, burning away numerous karmas that have accumulated over countless lifetimes. Reverent salutations to the ultimate Guru. So, on with verses like this, poetic and profound, both. Then they try and convince us through words and music, all vibration, off of our eardrums, off of the heart's devotion, off of the mind's memory. You know, that everything is Brahman. All this is Brahman, flowing down. We are not the body gown, nor the life force flowing down, the poem says. So we're more than these things. And we have to go on beyond body, prana, to the mind, to the intellect. In other words, the bodies of beings which appear in the form of the framework of bones and sinews is the self of the nature of food. What's that called? Annamaya kosha. Further within is the self of prana, split into 5, pranamaya kosha. Deeper still is the self of the nature of the mind, manomaya kosha, different from these two. Even deeper than that is the self of the nature of intelligence, the vijnana maya kosha. At the deepest of all distinct levels is the self of the nature of bliss, anandamaya kosha. And going back, food is pervaded by vital energy. Vital energy is pervaded by mind. Mind is pervaded by intelligence. And that ever-happy intelligence is pervaded by bliss. The self of bliss is pervaded by Brahman, the witness, the innermost of all. Brahman is not pervaded by anything else. Neither by action, nor begetting children, nor anything else. Only by knowing Brahman does one attain Brahman. So, Kata Rudra Upanishad, it probably reminds you of Shankara's scriptures too. How he treats the 5 sheaths, the Adara system of India. So, there you see, fire of wisdom came out of that. You see, all of this is just to be taken as very essential increments inside a particle of wisdom that exists inside of a ray of streaming, living, intelligent particles, which has its origin in you. And what else is there? The power to dissolve is there. So you projected, you can dissolve. It projects, it can also dissolve. It goes both ways. It's called arupa manonasha. It can even dissolve the mind, which is, according to both Buddhism and Advaita Vedanta, a positive thing. And then finally, samanya vijnana, or penultimately, samanya vijnana. That wisdom is settling. It gives you a feeling of ultimate contentment, which is not an adequate word to express it, but to just feel equal and maybe, as Krishna puts it to Arjuna in the Gita, content with anything. I'm now content with anything. And a person or a being like that sits, even inside the 5 koshas, content with everything the way it is, and knowing itself to be a witness of all, which is back there before, Sakshi Chaitanya, the witness of everything. It's not only just a witness of phenomena, it's the witness of consciousness and its workings as well. So in the Guru Stotram, in the scriptures, in my chart, now read my lips. And remember this. Guru Bhakti, there at the end, devotion. See, that covers the whole thing, except for at the very bottom there, you see 3 more triputis. The immanent, the transcendent, and the absolute in terms of worlds, and past, present, and future in terms of time, and speech, life force, and mind in terms of great connections that are eternal. These are, I have a whole chart on some of those. They're very beautiful. So we've run out of time in the first half. By the way, thank you to my SRV Sangha for giving me a Father's Day garland, held very precious in spiritual life and in Hawaii both. So very thankful, grateful, and humbled by that offering. So let's take our break here and return in 15 minutes for the final half of this class, this series of classes.